Hello, everyone. This is Max. You are watching Equity Match panel discussion. Today, we'll be focused on sustainability, and we have five great panelists. Thank you so much, Guy, for coming, sharing with us their point of view, thoughts, insight, and much more. Before starting, I would like to introduce with just a few words. I'm not going to be too long. What exactly our topic today is. So let me talk a bit more about introducing what sustainability actually means. Sustainability is a social goal for people to coexist on Earth over the long time. Sustainability often focuses on countering major environmental problems, including climate change, loss of biodiversity, loss of ecosystem services, land degradation, and air and water pollution. The economic dimension of sustainability is very controversial. There will always be tension between the ideas of welfare and prosperity for all of us and environmental conservation. So we must find some kind of trade offs. This means, for example, using fewer resources per unit of output, even while growing the economy, reducing impact and polluting less. But this is very difficult. Some experts say there is no evidence that it's happening at the scale that is required. Global issues are difficult to tackle as they need global solutions. Existing global organizations such as UN, WTO are inefficient in enforcing current global regulations. One reason for this is the lack of sustainable sanctioning mechanisms. Governments are not the only sources of action for sustainability. Businesses are trying to integrate ecological concerns with economic activity. Measuring sustainability is difficult. Indicator considers environmental, social, and economic domains. The metrics are evolving now. Currently, they include certification system, type of corporate accounting, and types of index. The concept of sustainability has faced various criticisms. One is that the concept is vague and only a buzzword. Another is that sustainability might be an impossible goal. Some experts have pointed out that no country is delivering what its citizens need without transgressing the biological planetary boundaries. As you can see, the topic is very complicated, it's extremely articulated. We've been talking about the sustainability for the last probably 20 years, and very little has been achieved compared to what goals are. As today, we talk about this huge topic, very important to all of us in an entrepreneurial and investment perspective. And we do this with five great panelists, which I'm going to introduce one by one before starting what is the most important part, okay, the discussion. So I will start introducing Jeffrey Bayer, founder and director of Zest Associate, a sustainability strategist with a proven track record in guiding companies and governments toward a low carbon future. His expertise spans climate policy, green finance, and clean technology innovations, allowing him to craft effective sustainability strategies that balance environmental responsibility with economic prosperity. Bayer has a strong background in entrepreneurship and has spearheaded the creation of renewable energy centers of excellence, demonstrating his commitment for fostering practical solutions for a sustainable future. Thank you, Jeffrey, for so much for coming. Our second panelist is Stephanie Kruzbach, founder and CEO of Piravan Living a Women Who Kayak, Lake Country Clean Waters Executive Director, Sustainability and Wellness Creative, Piravan Living founder, Zero Waste PM, magazine editor, children's book author, Women Who Kayak founder, bringing over 17 years experience in digital marketing, branding, and content creation. She served as the executive director of Lake Country Clean Waters. Moreover, she hosts and produces the Person and Planet podcast and magazine, dedicated to spotlighting the narratives, insight, and expertise of endeavors in sustainability, wellness, and social impact. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming. Our third panelist is Federico Megalini, Director of Sustainability Service UK for DSS Plus. Federico Megalini, a mechanical engineer who had PhD in management, boasts over 20 years experience in e-waste management. He has proven track record implementing policy, developing standards, and creating financial system in this field. After establishing the UK branch for Sofis, Federico now directs sustainability service for DSS Plus, a consulting firm focused on sustainability solution. Thank you so much, Federico, for coming. Rajeshwar Baku, entrepreneur, sustainability visionary, climate advocate, thought leader, writer, and marketing guru. An expert in sustainability and impact investing with a profound commitment to driving positive change, with a background in entrepreneurship and a passion for environmental stewardship. Rajeshwar has dedicated his career to advancing sustainable solutions and fostering impactful investments. He possesses a deep understanding of sustainability principles and their application in business and investment strategies. Through his work, Rajeshwar has demonstrated an ability to identify and support high-impact projects that generate both financial returns and positive environmental and social outcomes. With his expertise and vision, Rajeshwar continues to play a pivotal role in shaping a more sustainable and equitable future. Thank you, Raj. Raj, for me, it's simple, so I will call you Raj.
Yeah,
The
thanks.
last one, but of course not the least, Dr. Christina Yang Zhang, UN ITU Vice Chairman of Metaverse Working Group on Sustainability, co-chair of Cityverse Task Group, Top 100 Women of Future. The Metaverse pioneer since 2006, holds a PhD in digital twin and metaverse, and serves as the UN ITU Vice Chairman of the Metaverse Working Group on Sustainability, as well as co-chair of the Cityverse Task Group. Recognized as one of the top 100 women of the future, she specializes in the future work, skills, science, and AI, with 16 years experience translating visionary concept into globally impactful enterprises. She collaborates with government and corporate leaders on industry, innovation, and skill strategies. CEO of the Metaverse Institute, she leads a team of pioneers shaping the future of the metaverse, AI, digital twins, and smart cities, guiding organizations to enhance real-world outcomes through innovative technology. Thank you so much, Christina. Welcome back. This is our second time with us. I'm very pleased to have all of you guys, and I cannot wait to start talking. So let me introduce our topics, and after I leave all the scene to you. Discussion points of today are, of course, all based on sustainability, and we translate in different bullet points. The rise of sustainable investing is our first one. Defining strategic sustainability market trends, share data and statistics on the size and growth of the market. Why investors are attracted to sustainable startups. As we start, and I'm going to be silent from now on. Jeffrey, would you like to introduce?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. As mentioned, my name is Jeffrey Bayer. I'm the founder and managing director of Zest Associates. It's a Dubai-based sustainability consultancy. I'm joining you from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia today. So it's 20 to 9 p.m. Here. So pleasure to join you during this Ramadan time. I'm going to just start with just a kind of overview of the SME landscape and really how sustainability is considered by SMEs. And I want to really focus on SMEs, just kind of a regular SME or startup, not necessarily a startup or SME that's focused specifically on a sustainable technology or innovation. I'm really trying to take this from the perspective of a normal SME, could be like a welding guy or a restaurant owner or something, right? Just a regular old SME. How are they considering sustainability? Well, first of all, SMEs are really important. Globally, small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, make up 90% of all businesses and represent more than 50% of employment worldwide. They also represent at least 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions that come from the business sector, according to the OECD. So they play a huge role in being able to tackle the climate change challenge that we're all faced with. Despite their importance, they're really not super engaged in net zero. According to 2023 research by the World Economic Forum, in the MENA region anyway, just 12% of SMEs have set net zero targets, and even fewer, 7%, are mapping out a transition strategy. Why is this? Why are SMEs struggling to take action? I mean, the answers are as follows. The We Mean Business Coalition surveys SMEs annually about their intentions and reasons around their sustainable choices, their sustainability choices. The latest survey showed that 58% lacked the skills and knowledge to take action. 55% said they lacked funds. 44% said they lacked time. Interestingly, 80% wanted to take some kind of action, but they needed some kind of additional support, finance tools, regulatory change, demand from the customers in order to actually take that step. So that's kind of the context to give you a high level overview. The specific kind of title of this session is really defining strategic sustainability and current market trends for sustainable businesses. So when we define strategic sustainability, I looked it up. PwC has a great report on this. They define it as adopting a value lens approach to enabling long-term sustainable value from your business by effectively and responsibly managing environmental and socioeconomic impacts. So what does that actually mean? I think about it in two kind of components. First of all, understanding why sustainability matters to protect the core business. I think so often SMEs and startups consider sustainability and climate action to be something adjacent to their core business, not something that's actually central to it. And that's not actually the case most of the time. So, sustainability isn't just about filing a report or measuring something. It's not just a cost or a compliance check. It can really underpin real value in a company by helping them to improve efficiency, to reduce waste, to enhance employee retention when we look at some of the social and governance components of ESG. These are all core things that any good business owner or manager should really be considering, right? The old adage, you can't manage what you don't measure, is a great foundation stone for really tracking the metrics that feed into a sustainability strategy. So being able to measure and monitor different metrics in your business can actually help you identify risks or challenges or inefficiencies before they become material and lead to a core business risk. And that's a good word to mention, actually, materiality. So when you do a sustainability report or sustainability analysis, there's this vast array of metrics that can be tracked and measured. You shouldn't measure every single metric, right? Sustainability is specific to each and every business in a different way. So it's important to understand which of those metrics are material to the business and measure and manage those. So a lot of those revolve around kind of value protection, which includes minimizing operational risk, ensuring regulatory compliance, and mitigating reputational risk. So that's all about kind of protecting the company and how sustainability relates to that. The second option, or the second kind of component here, is how sustainability can enhance the core business. So there are programs available, for example, for companies, sustainable companies, to attract cheaper loans, cheaper finance. As I mentioned, I'm based in the Middle East. Just before COP28, the UN Climate Change Conference, which was held in Dubai in November and December last year, the UAE's biggest bank, First Abu Dhabi Bank, increased its sustainable finance target with a new pledge to invest and facilitate 500 billion dirhams, or 135 billion US dollars, into sustainable and transition financing by 2030. So in the next 5 or 6 years, they're going to be deploying $135 billion into sustainable and transition finance. There's a huge need, I think, there's the real push from a finance side to identify these low carbon and sustainable investment opportunities and attract those types of opportunities to a particular bank instead of them going to their competitors. So I think there is a real movement towards offering lower cost finance to sustainable businesses. That's one way it can enhance the core business. Another way is really through product innovation. So creating something new for companies that want sustainable solutions. I've worked with clean tech startups for a long time, and a lot of them really thought that the key differentiator for their product was going to be that it was sustainable, and they were met with yawns. Right? People didn't really want only a sustainable innovation. They wanted an innovation that delivered on its green credentials, but also cost less, performed better, was more robust and durable. They just want a better product overall that also includes sustainability attributes. So when you're looking at product innovation, I think there's a way to integrate sustainability into a new product, but that needs to be one of a portfolio of things to recommend that new product. Two more quick areas to enhance the core business. One of them is increasing market share. So SMEs that differentiate themselves from their peers through their sustainability performance are better equipped to gain market share. And I've actually seen this happen in the UAE recently. I was approached by a company who had recently lost a proposal, a bid. They were bidding for a larger company. The larger company came back to them and said, well, what's your sustainability strategy? Like, what kind of actions have you taken around sustainability recently? And the small company didn't really have much to say, and because of that, they lost the contract opportunity. So those companies that do take those sustainability actions can actually increase their market share relative to their peers. I'm going to come back to that a little bit in a couple of minutes, because it's important to consider how sustainability can be deployed in a way that doesn't disadvantage certain startups who maybe don't have access to the tools or finance that others do. So we'll come back to that in a second. The final way is about brand enhancement. So it's another way to kind of differentiate yourself and understand how sustainability can enhance the core business. So I talked about ways to protect the core business. I talked about ways to enhance the core business with sustainability, and all of these can attract investment. Kind of finally, looking at how startups can effectively integrate sustainability. There's a lot of ways and a lot of tools available. One that's really exciting that was actually launched at COP28 is something called the SME Climate Hub. It was launched in partnership with Masdar, the big energy company, and First Abu Dhabi Bank in the UAE. I recommend just type in SME Climate Hub to Google and it will come up. It's got a huge set of tools and support that can really help any startup or small business advance their sustainable journey. First, you can kind of figure out where you stand, right? You learn what's at stake and how you and your business contribute to the climate crisis. You can measure your own emissions and understand how to reduce them using free tools that are available on this website. You can learn how to take action. So you can kind of create new action plans. And there's actually a 7-part course that allows small companies to understand how they can get started after they've done some initial assessment. There's resources for support, and then there's an opportunity to publicly commit on reducing emissions and taking sustainable actions. I think this is key to what I mentioned earlier about how companies really need to not be disadvantaged by a demand for sustainable enhancement and performance. I think that there's tools available now, which is great, that companies can actually take these steps on their own with the support of available tools. And the last thing I want to mention, second last thing really, is looking at this idea of supply chains. So small businesses, startups, they sell their products and services generally to larger businesses. There's a lot of B2B sales. This kind of creates for the larger business a Scope 3 emissions tracking challenge. Large businesses want to track their emissions. They've got dedicated teams to do sustainability. Small companies don't typically have that. But what these large businesses want to do often is to track their supply chain emissions, to track their Scope 3 emissions, and understand how those emissions contribute to their own net zero goals. This isn't easy, and actually there's Science-Based Targets Initiative, which you may be familiar with, SBTI, which encourages companies to commit to emission reductions that are in line with science. It actually found that measuring Scope 3 emissions was the #1 barrier and challenge that large companies face in being confident about their own net zero target. So when small companies are able to measure and manage their emissions and feed that information to a larger company in a consistent way, it's going to really help other companies in the whole kind of business ecosystem reduce emissions, including Scope 3 emissions. One final thing to mention, I mean, this is a hot topic, actually, how startups integrate sustainability and attract investors. And it was just coincidental. A couple of weeks ago, there's a podcast that's produced by the World Future Energy Summit. It's called Future Energy Insights. I moderate that podcast every month. And the last episode was titled How SMEs May Be Our Biggest Hope for Net Zero. So you can search for the Future Energy Insights podcast if you're interested in hearing a few other experts discuss the issue and hear some other insights there. But from my side for now, I think that helps to start us off. And I'll turn it back over to Max to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I can have a better opening because I've been covering a lot already, and this is beautiful. I'm passing the ball to Stephanie, and I'm completely sure we'll be contributing much, much more. Any Q&A we take in the end, so we go with the floor now, and after we move to answer the questions when we the last 10, 20 minutes of the panel. Stephanie, please.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here today. My name is Stephanie Krugsack, founder and CEO of Purevant Living and Person and Planet podcast. So to touch upon what Jeffrey was discussing, so why is sustainable investing so important? So we're going to look at a few of the statistics here of why that's the case, because it offers full transparency and it really minimizes risk for your business. So looking at global market insights, so the sustainable finance market crossed the USD $4.2 trillion in 2022. And that is expected to continue growing by over 22% via the compound annual growth rate within the next 10 years, so by 2032. So it's really interesting that it's growing very quickly and very steadily. And another interesting perspective to look at too is general sustainable investing, where there was a 30-year study actually where the KLD 400 Social Index showed that it generated a return of 9.95% versus the S&P 500 at 9.61. So generally over these 30 years, sustainable investments have performed better. So it is really great to see those very convincing numbers of why operating in this manner is really important and is something good to highlight when you are looking for investment opportunities for your startup. And we'll talk more about into some of the specifics in the communication side and structure side later on in the event.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Before we move to our the second topics we've been covering today, Federico, Christina, and Raj, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
I think for me, it was interesting. One of the questions that was in the chat about is having sustainability strategy or adding sustainability in the business of the company adding risk. I would rather see the opposite. I really see integrating sustainability in your business model as a way to mitigate risk, specifically certain risks. Maybe I will elaborate later on during one of the intervention, the slot I have later. But I would really encourage everyone to look at sustainability as a competitive advantage that you can leverage. It's not easy, it's not difficult. There is not a perfect recipe to integrate sustainability into your business. As mentioned by Jeffrey, I mean, you can be running a restaurant. You can run any type of business, small, medium, even larger. It's not simple, but it's a game changer. And I personally expect in the future sustainability credentials of product, of company, of your operations will allow you to have a premium price. We see already companies adding premium price for low carbon materials. So there is all a set of incentives that in the future will pay off in this effort. So I really encourage you to look into that.
Thank you so much, Federico. Jeffrey, Federico brought in the questions. Now the question was directed to you. Now you need to answer it.
For sure. Yeah. Is there risk? Is there risk in doing this? You know, I think there's definitely risk in not doing it. So I would recommend doing it. I don't really see a lot of risk in understanding what one's sustainability position might be. the whole point of especially strategic sustainability is to figure out how and where there's an overlap between what's best for the business and how it can improve sustainability performance. Sometimes people will look at that and say, well, I'm already figuring out what's best for my business. Like, I'm just doing that as an everyday part of running my business as a responsible business owner, which may be true. But I was working with a catering company recently in Dubai. They produce 50,000 meals a day. They have been running an effective catering company for many years, and only because of COP28 did they really turn their mind to sustainability. And they've discovered that when they actually looked at their operations through the lens of sustainability, they were able to uncover all of these unexpected areas where they could actually find cost savings, efficiencies, improvements, waste reduction, maybe selling on some of the waste that they were previously throwing away. Sustainability brings a lens to normal business operations that isn't always obvious. And I think that that's a way that sustainability reporting and sustainability monitoring and measuring can actually uncover unexpected risks and inefficiencies in the business. When it comes to actual risk from doing this, I guess one potential downside is that your performance is lower than your peers. But in my experience, typically companies aren't looking for the lowest emitting, supplier or the one with the lowest impact. What they're looking for is a supplier that's at least measuring and monitoring their impact. So, they're not making a decision necessarily based on the tons of CO2 per unit of output that you as a small business are creating. They're more looking to see, are you making the effort? Are you trying to reduce your impact? And that's really the differentiator that I've seen more often.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I don't know if Christina and Raj, you want to ask something, or otherwise I'll move it to a second topic.
Very happy to chip in quickly. I think at this moment, sustainability is not only about clean energy, it's also about responsible consumption, because according to the latest figure from the United Nations, if every single one of us, the 8 billion population of the world, continue to consume in the same way we are doing now, we need another 2 planets by 2030, which is clearly not sustainable. So I think when we're talking about wider, how SMEs or startups should thinking about align our business models or principles or ethics or culture to do with how UN Sustainable Development Goals, you need to looking at how we're fitting in maybe one of the 17 goals or some of them. We can't tick all the box, but maybe there might be something we can do to help address the issues on a daily basis, to change the supply chain, to encourage a more responsible consumption all the way from the bottom to the top. I think that can be something very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. Raj, I'm coming to you, as I'm sure you would like to open our second topics. Let me go through them, and after I leave you all the stage. Integrating sustainability for impact and profit. I know that there is so much talk about how sustainability can be actually profitable. Real work cases or startups that have successfully integrated sustainability. Frameworks and tools for measuring and reporting sustainability. Please, Raj.
Yeah, like integrating sustainability into your organization or startup or SME and middle scale companies as well. It's possible one side, but the thing is on which side of the lens you are looking into is also one of the biggest question. Either you're looking as a consumer, or either you're looking as a business owner, either you're looking into the lens as a mediator or something like that. It depends on where you look and how you look, basically. So there are so many businesses that have integrated sustainability successfully, like Ecosia, or maybe there are so many other startups. Like you can also say Tesla, you can also say some big organizations, and also some small scale organizations locally who use solar energy, or else using locally produced corn or even wheat for producing breads and so on and so forth. These are all the industries, but we are all interdependent on each other industry. Let's say small scales are dependent on a medium scale, and medium scale is dependent on large scale, one way or the other. So it's not one way for the SMEs to say, okay, we want to go sustainable, and also it's not easy for the large scale companies also we want to go sustainable. So I just want to give you an example, one business case where we looked into through two different types of lenses in sustainable investment. One is like there is some Italian people, like a startup, who want to create the aquaponic vanilla production basically in Italy, because most of the Europe consumes more vanilla than Africa where it's produced. So what happened is they want to give the people in the Europe basically fresh vanilla one side, and they want to give this through vertical farming and other aquaponics and stuff like that, locally produced and stuff like that. But seeing that in the perspective of the sustainability, and producing it here through huge electricity requirement and all the different things like water usage and other things, it's like harder even to produce one side. And also, even if you produce, you can eliminate the supply chain emissions, but the only thing is you are producing it sustainably. But if you produce the same vanilla production in back in Madagascar, you can at least reach at least 5 sustainable development goals, that you can save the life on land, you can reduce the hunger over there, you can provide jobs, and you can provide education to the people over there, because Madagascar is dying one side. So you can also increase the reduce supply chain emissions in some way or the other by integrating some new technologies, or depending on some supply chains that are sustainable. So you can at least attain 5 or 4 sustainable development goals if you produce where it's already producing. And you can also help environment, people, and planet. And also you can generate profit by minimizing the risks, as well as reducing the supply chain and all this mediator stuff that happens in between. But the thing is, like, seeing it, most founders will not come into that perspective, because they just see it in the, okay, we want to give them the fresh vanilla and we want to produce it here, it's better to give fresh ones produced here. So why can't we think in different lens and also see the people, planet, and profit perspective to the industry, rather than just having sustainability in mind and also giving the fresh goods to the people? So this is all the perspective of the lenses from different viewpoints where you look into. But for me, at least the founders should come with a vision here of at least achieving one SDG rather than achieving 10 or 15 SDGs at the same time, because it's like spreading all over your thoughts all over the place. It's not that you have to have a niche in that. So in that case, you have to have at least one SDG in the starting scale to have a vision and a mission in that case to achieve. And on the other hand, you should be able to differentiate between your competitors, or differentiate between things that are really set examples, like from learning from the other entrepreneurs and other businesses, like which one is the better, either A, plan B, or plan C, which one will be the better sustainable strategy for your business, and which sustainable strategy will attract more investors. That's also one of the biggest question, right? You come with one sustainable strategy, but it might not attract the investors because they might be looking into a different lens. So which strategy will work for the which investor also, you have to figure out. It's not like you figure out, you just send the same resume to all the job interviews. You have to also do the same thing with the jobs as well. So you have to customize for each investor the way they are looking into, which way they want to invest in. And on the other hand, there are many frameworks in Europe, and global reporting initiatives, and sustainable accounting standards board, and all life cycle analysis, your circular economy, your social return on investment, and stuff like that. There are so many different types of frameworks and ESG rules across the world. But my point of view is to at least achieve one sustainability goal over a period of next 3 years when you're building a startup. That creates a ripple effect, and then you can build upon it, creating new strategies and new ideations to implement other sustainable development goals within the organization as well as external in the organization as well. And I would suggest you should have the core values on the mission and the vision, and you should always have the sustainability as your root system. You should always look back and see what comes in a good way and what comes in a bad way, and also what brings profit. And also sustainability is not only sustaining you and financially and things like that. Is sustaining your business financially is not the sustainability. Sustaining the planet is a sustainability, and you have to think really in that way, basically. Otherwise it's not impossible. Like we can make millions and trillions and billions, but at the end of the day, if the planet dies, nothing is going to sustain in the planet. So I would suggest you to take away three key takeaways. My suggestions are like to avoid concentrating on all SDGs at once, find the niche SDG that works for your startup, and prioritize sustainability to sustain both your business as well as the planet. And that's all from my side.
That's a lot, not all. And thank you so much, Raj. Federico.
Thank you. I mean, this part of the discussion is called integrating sustainability for impact and profit. And I think we might sometimes think that the two things are different. You can have a positive impact on the planet and you make a loss, or you can want to make a profit and then you don't have an impact. And I think those two things are not, in contradiction. And I want to focus on, give you two examples or two interesting viewpoints. We have been working in the last 5-6 years a lot with investors in the access to energy space. As you know, there is almost 1.3 billion people not having access to electricity from the grid. And then you have one of the SDG, which is Energy for All, SDG 7. And there is a lot of new technology that are trying to provide electricity and energy to people in Africa, in Southeast Asia, and so on. And there's billion that is being pumped into this sector, the so-called off-grid solar. Interestingly, already a couple of years after this new industry was becoming, the solution to this problem, investors, both public investors, institutional investors like the World Bank and so on, but also pension fund and so on, started looking into the sustainability of this new tech and said, look, you are introducing in South Africa, in the middle of nowhere, new tech, and then no one is taking care of this new tech at the end of life. And then they started looking to, you want to be responsible, you want to be sustainable in the way you finance even access to energy, you need to take a full life cycle responsibility onto those products. And we started then working with the fund to say, how can we integrate this dimension into the business model of the company? And we started developing criteria that companies, startups, and even more bigger company had to fulfill to get access to the money. So in that case, at the end, being able to embrace the full responsibility of the life cycle of your product was becoming a paramount to have access to the fund. And then sooner later on, companies started to really team up together to solve together the challenges they had in the management of that waste, because there was nothing competitive among them, was just trying to solve a problem that they were all facing as an industry. So again, early thinking about how to integrate sustainability was just a way to make sure your impact, the full impact you have, is positive. The net impact is not neglecting some area of the life cycle of your product, of your service. And another element that I wanted to put on the table is about being sustainable, adopting some of the principle of sustainability, like circular economy, is not about being green. It's about being more resilient. It's about having more access to resources. It's about protecting your supply chain. And you have a very good example, again, in the clean tech sector. In the last 10, 20 years, we saw a lot of new tech, new products being developed. I'm talking tech to even ensure the transition of net zero, all this new technology. And one of the common elements that those technology are having is that specific metals are really the enabling element for the technology. Element like rare earth, like lithium, like ruthenium, like indium, some of the elements in the periodic table that most of us even ignore the presence. And in the last 3 years, if you look at the latest EIA report, we see that we saw a massive increase of the mining extraction of those metals. If you look, lithium is almost 3 times over the last 3 years. Almost 60% of this lithium used by the clean tech. The same for nickel, the same for cobalt. Increasing the value of the price 6.5% for lithium, more than almost 2% for the cobalt, and materials that we were thinking were in abundance, now we are realizing are becoming scarce. And for company having to use those metals and as enabling element for the tech they want to sell, for the products they want to place on the market, it's a big risk. It's a supply risk because your production cost will go up, and of course it's directly impacting on your business. We saw in the last couple of years the investment in this sector has an increase of 30%. We have almost $40 billion now invested in 2022, looking into recycling technology for batteries, better extraction, better refining of lithium. All those materials related to clean tech are really under the spotlight. And then again, being sustainable, trying to close the loop, ensuring proper recycling of those materials, sourcing from stock rather than from primary mining, is really a matter of protecting your supply chain, is a matter of being more competitive. And of course, when you source material from recycling, most of the cases, you have lower carbon embedded into your product. And we see with all this tension about lowering the carbon embedded in your products, you can get a premium price. We saw Boliden, a big smelter selling low carbon content copper, and you pay more for that. Why do you pay more for a copper that is coming with lower CO2 content? Because you save on your offsetting of emissions. So again, the value of sustainability is much more perceived now than it was probably 20 years ago. It's a matter of finding out how your company, how your business model can benefit from them. And as I said earlier, is not immediate, is not easy, but the need is there. Resource scarcity in most of the sector will be the main trend over the next decades. The increase of population, the increase of demand of products will put extreme pressure on natural resources. So securing proper access and keeping those materials into the loop is strategic. As well as strategic, do climate risk assessment. You cannot avoid doing an assessment of the risk associated to climate change, how they will affect your business. And you need to try to be more sustainable if you want to be, even being selfish, just to protect your own business. That's what I really try to convey. There is no distinction between having positive impact and making profit if you embrace sustainability concept at the heart and you put them at the heart of your business. And investors, both private, institutional, will value that. That's one of my neighbors is an investor, is a private banker. I mean, we ended up, I'm a sustainability consultant, he's a private banker. Now we have something in common, which is this ESG acronym. And I think nowadays it's really becoming almost a buzzword. Yes, it is. But it's really, if you look for money, you cannot approach any investor without having a sustainability strategy, sustainability plan. Show how you take care of your operation in a sustainable way. And in most of the cases, sustainable operation means reducing your energy, generating less waste, which is at the end cutting the cost in your P&L. So again, it makes absolutely business sense. I'm a sustainability consultant. I'm not an environmentalist. I mean, I just try to make the business case for company, for our clients. It's all about showing that you can make more money, you can save costs, and ultimately you can benefit of that out of that.
Thank you so much, Federica. It's been so insightful. Christina.
Oh, I'm very inspired, and especially I like your point about how to deal with the 1.3 billion population in Africa and some part of Asia who are suffering from energy poverty. And you know, actually, a lot of times the electricity use for business and residents, there is peak time and time where it's really low. And one of the ways to really, do it on a daily basis to offset is try to diversify the time when you utilize the electricity for your business. And there's a lot of companies, especially in the UK, Octopus, they will charge you different, like fees for the electricity use. If it's peak time, they will charge you more. If it's off peak time, they will charge you less. But actually doing that, it can also like offset a lot of, energy consumptions by business on a daily basis. That's one thing. And another thing I think which is quite important is when we're talking about sustainability, especially like evaluation and accreditation, maybe at this moment, a lot of focus is on reducing carbon footprints of individuals as well as business. But also increasingly, there are more and more focus on biodiversity offsets. And it starts to become like a legal requirement by different countries. Sometimes it's mandatory, sometimes it's optional, but it also shows that climate change is more than just reduce our carbon footprints. If we continue at the current rates, to pollute the environment and do not do enough on conservation, we're losing huge amounts of species in different parts of the world, which will in return having a major, negative impact on all kinds of business and human societies at large. So I think that's also another thing maybe a lot of small, medium-sized business can thinking about. And the third point I want to highlight is there is a lot of exciting discussion about how AI is going to revolutionize all business at this moment. And that's two different types of situation we need to manage. For one thing, according to some latest research, nearly 50% of AI-related applications or startups, they are focusing on how to address climate change. But on the other side, the environmental impact of AI-related technologies is also, need to be taken into full consideration. I think, Frederick, you are like an expert in e-waste. We know all the a high performance computer we need to use to train AI, GPUs and all the hardware data centers. Once those kind of e-waste, are disposed, it's not very easy to get them, disposed naturally. And we normally put them somewhere and hopefully within decades, they will somehow manage to get themselves sorted out, but it's not that easy. Another thing is the heat related, release from data center, is causing a lot of climate change related issues. So, I mean, to the point that the European Commission gave out 2 million euros last year, and basically looking at setting up a coalition with government entities and private companies to explore the possibility of putting the data center in the outer space because it's freezing cold, it's vacuum. So putting data center there is actually perfect, for reducing carbon emissions of all the many different data centers on Earth. And also on a separate note, there is a US startup company called Lone Star, and they are even more ambitious. They try to put the data center in the moon. They're still working on that, although they said they should get that sorted out by last year, but I think they're still working on it. So I guess there are lots of very interesting things we can look into the space to really help SMEs and our investors to find the right match to really address the sustainable issues whether it's AI or any other kind of frontier technologies. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christina. As we move to our third topics, before moving, Jeffrey, Stephanie, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, I think
We
we
move.
covered it. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Thank you. Before anyone wants to ask question, please do it, and we address all of them in the Q&A session in more or less half an hour. I'll move to our third topics, and talking about strategies for attracting investors. So let's move to the money side. Crafting impactful pitch deck. We all know how complicated it is to pitch to investors, even more when it comes to sustainability. Types of impact investors, investment criteria, and how startups can tailor their pitch accordingly. Stephanie.
Yeah, so as a startup, you have an incredible opportunity to create your business with this mindset from day one versus going back later and trying to collect data or shift things around. So if you have that mindset initially when you're developing a product or service, you have the perfect opportunity to implement right away instead of starting later, and that you have those short-term and long-term goals to operate sustainably in a more sustainable manner. So looking at, for example, C2C, the cradle-to-cradle concept. So looking at the circular life cycle versus linear. So a lot of manufacturing today is linear, where you have a product and at the end of life, it becomes trash. There's nothing you can do with it. So if you're thinking of the cradle to cradle concept, what does the end of life of your product look like? So can it be composted? Can it be purchased as a raw material for another company? So really having that mindset on as you structure your business and your product and how it's being created, what materials are being put into it, and looking at the cost savings. So what you can do versus traditional methods, because it is maybe sellable at the end of its life or recyclable and can be made into something new, that you'd have cost savings that way. So just demonstrating the best use of resources for your product or service. And then are there any diversion opportunities? What do your waste streams look like? So waste to energy might be your last alternative, but perhaps someone else could purchase your waste. Or what can you divert from landfills initially? Maybe buying less of something in the first place. So if you really structure everything that way, you have a great opportunity for cost savings and being more attractive to investors. So also looking at your packaging. So can you purchase FSC paper? Is it compostable? And also looking at, is your product B2C or B2B? If it's B2C, industrial compostable, it might not be a good option because you can't put it in your compost in your backyard. So that would be looking at too, that's not maybe a good feasible option for your packaging. It would have to be at home compostable. So looking at that, what do you use for your printing? So let's say you're a primarily service-based company, you might have marketing materials. Can you use soy-based inks versus petroleum? So looking from that perspective too. And then who is in your supply chain? So where are you sourcing your raw materials from? I know a bit was mentioned about your different scopes of emissions. So scope 3, the more indirect, would be the emissions your suppliers are creating that you don't have full control of. But as a startup, you do have control of who you would be working with. So really keeping that in mind to really look deeply into how your suppliers operate. Do they have fair labor practices and wages in place? So again, that's what your suppliers are doing. You can operate that way too and make sure that you're aligning with your suppliers you're choosing to work with. Looking at your emissions, your carbon offsets. So do you want to operate in a carbon neutral manner? And looking at, again, your supply chain, how far are items being shipped to you? So the farther that is, the higher your emissions go up, the larger footprint you have. So keeping that in perspective as well too. And then I know Jeffrey mentioned this, that really just tracking from day one is one of the biggest recommendations, that you have all of that data. And as a startup, you might not have a ton of data yet, but you do have a baseline to look back towards. Let's say you want to have certifications. You need to have generally at least a year of data before you can get any of those. So really just having a roadmap and an integration plan for your sustainable operations and growth. Maybe you're not at one area today where you want to be, but you could be in a year, you could be in 5 years. So just that you're being very transparent about all of that. and just showing your step-by-step progress and goals. And again, highlighting more on the communication side to really highlight and attract investors. Have your goals defined to stakeholders, and you want to have that everywhere. You want to have that on your website, in your social media, your email marketing, your pitch decks that you're sharing with investors or potential customers or supply chain, so that you have all of that unified information available to everybody. And also aligning yourself with other organizations. For example, Tradewater, you can offset your carbon impact by exactly what you're emitting for your predictive year of business. If you want to become B Corp certified, so what your environmental and social impact is. So there's very strict parameters, a process to go through to get that certification. Might be something in your goals as a startup. Maybe you want to have a 2% giving back business model, or 1% for the planet you choose to be a member of. I know the SME Climate Hub was mentioned, is a really great resource for calculators to help you look at what the data or predictive data could be. Looking at regional or local organizations that help you progress your goals a bit faster. So in Wisconsin, we have Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council. In the Midwest, the Great Lakes Business Network. So you can join these organizations of collective companies that have that similar mindset to operate more sustainably, and you can help grow that much faster by utilizing their resources as well too. Or perhaps you want to sign the Net Zero by 2030 pledge as part of your business model and your plan that you're committing to. And again, just lining yourself with experts from different organizations to really accelerate your potential. And looking at reporting. So generally a carbon footprint and impact report every year, looking at what you've been doing for the year. So you want to represent the 3 pillars of ESG, your environmental, social, and governance side, and how your company aligns with each of them and what your goals are under each bucket. And then the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, those were also mentioned, where there's 17 goals to pick from. Perhaps you pick 2 or 3 for the year you want to align with for your business. So 4 could be quality education, where you want to give back to the community and do presentations to schools. Or number 14, life below water, planning kayak river cleanups, because you really believe in keeping water clean and promoting water advocacy. So you want to see what your strategy looks like and how you want to appear in the community. That's a big part too about what you want to have in your overall communications and your strategy. And then I like to call creating this a predictive sustainability charter is what I call it. So your impact report is generally at the end of the year, you're reporting what you had done. But as a startup, you maybe don't have a lot of data yet and you're in beginning phase. So creating this predictive sustainability charter is a good report you can create for investors, for your business to look at. This is what our goals are within sustainability, and this is what we predict it will be, because you're going to have your sales calculations, your predictions. So you're going to have a good idea operationally of what you're working with and what your goals are for that time frame, for that year, for that quarter. So I'd really encourage creating a report or a charter to have that information in place to share of what your plan is, your roadmap. And also having statistics within your communication. So in your reports, in your newsletters, in your social media platforms, that you're sharing why this matters, why it's important. So for example, if you do choose to become a B Corporation or benefit corporation, so a study by B Lab showed that B corporations grew 28 times more faster than the average US business between 2011 and 2015. That's huge. That's a great statistic you could use in your marketing communications. Another one, a report by Real Leaders Magazine. So they found that the top 100 most impactful B corporations had an average growth revenue of 14.4% versus the S&P 500 national average of 8.3. So just showing the benefits of operating this way and intertwining those actual statistics and numbers within your communications is very helpful too. And again, regularly communicating all of your progress and steps as you go along, even if it's not successful. Let's say you're trying a new type of sustainable packaging and it doesn't quite work or fit with your product. That's something that you're showing that you're working on and working towards a a better solution. So it's important to have all of that highlighted as you progress along in your progress. So that's just, I guess, high level, a few ways to help craft impactful communications and showcasing your startup's commitment to operate this way and help attract investors.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Raj, you're muted.
Yeah, I would like to highlight about your crafting your pitch deck. Basically, yeah, you should have your basic problem definition, your solution, and also you should have, as Stephanie mentioned, the predictive charts, how much of carbon emissions you can reduce, maybe how much of biodiversity you can bring back if you are aligning with these goals over a period of 3 years or 5 years, and that would also be helpful. And on the other hand, after getting the investments and going up for Series A and Series B, you should still be aligning with this goal. Sometimes what we do is like we get lost in things because of the different types of reportings we implement for different locations and stuff like that, and we have so many different guidelines. There is no universal guidelines that you have to be in place, and I see that. And also there is so much of you should also look about collaborations, and also you should be innovative and thrive always for the better planet and the better business as well. And you should be sustainable as you sustain also, because you should sustain at the end of the day. If you don't sustain, there is no again sustainability, because you have aligned with sustainability. In that case, you should also sustain at the end of the day, and keep always thriving and keep always not only innovating but trying to test them in real world and real time, and thinking about those solutions are really impacting, or those solutions are really helping the planet to make better future, and implementing those goals over in a short period of time works better than aligning with those goals for a long period of time. Because thinking about some different energy systems, different technologies, it might take years to innovate, but the thing is, like, aligning with those goals, you are not progressing in the way you want to. In that case, go with the flow and see what solutions are available for your fit, and match with those things and collaborate with those people which can align with your sustainable development goals, and also mention the revenues or the profits you are going to generate, and also the impact you are going to generate.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Raj. Federico.
I think for me, it's really important, also leveraging what others said earlier, to have a consistent and strong data set to back your strategy. We do a lot of work with the World Business Council Sustainable Development, with tire company, tire manufacturer, so the Continental, Goodyear, Bridgestone, Michelin, and so on. We do a lot of work with the home appliance sector, so the Samsung, Philips, Electrolux, BSH, and so on. And we collect data from the members to really create KPIs that are describing their sustainability journey. And we have done that now for more than 5 or 6 years, and really showing the trajectory. And the company are really using constantly those data for their advocacy and so on and so forth. So for me, if you go and pitch to investors and you want to, tell the story, your plan, you need to have consistent data. And I think, of course, one of the advantages, if you are an SME or if you are a startup, you are small, so you have everything under control, but it's easier to put things in order when you're small rather than when you are a company of 50,000 people with 20 production sites all over the world. So I really encourage to plan since day zero how you want to track, how you want to measure your sustainability, the same way how you want to measure your profitability. Defining a good set of metrics for me is fundamental. And I saw Porni that was also mentioning in one of the questions, thanks for emphasizing protecting supply chain is crucial. Can you specify how can SME can do in a cost matter? Again, you as mentioned, I think by Stephanie or Christine, you can decide, because you're small, how you work, who you work with. So again, take full control, full ownership of your business, and use that when you pitch to investors. Sustainability credentials are getting more and more valued also by the public. If you look about B Corp certification was mentioned earlier. For instance, here in UK, there are supermarkets or places where you can filter portal, where you can filter for company looking for products that are B Corp certified. Amazon launched in the US originally this climate pledge friendly badge for products credential. We had companies reaching out to us, say, okay, we really want to get this climate friendly pledge badge on our product because we know it will help massively our sales in the US. And of course, it was about how can I showcase my credentials. So if you want to pitch to investors, you should use all those arguments. You really demonstrate what is your journey looking like, and don't do that with just the theory. Back that with metrics, back with statistics, back that with data as much as you can.
Thank you so much, Federico. I'm moving to our last topic, and after we close with the Q&A before the closing. Now, we talk about opportunities and collaboration. How can, as Christina was already mentioning before, how AI, blockchain, and circular economy principles can support sustainability? Christina, would you like to start?
Yeah, of course. I think I already mentioned a bit about AI, and I think there is a question from the audience looking at how we deal with e-waste. I think, there is another quite powerful technologies which a lot of people are talking about now, which is quantum computing. And one really powerful thing about quantum computing is really massive computing power. And you might remember in 2019 when Google announced they have achieved quantum supremacy, where they have a super computer which can run 158 million times faster than any existing high performance computer. And that was in 2019. And last year, the second generation was 200 million times faster than its own predecessor. To just put things in perspective, the first generation, when they announced in 2019, to calculate something really complicated, which used to run for 10,000 years, now it's 4 minutes. So imagine using that kind of computing power, utilize that into new material development, because there has been a lot of discussion about how we can develop the next generation electronics to make them really environmentally friendly, especially degradable to the point. So I think to deal with e-waste, we might need to be a little bit radical to use quantum computing to looking at how to fast track the whole new material development to ensure the future, electronic compliances and applications are actually environmentally friendly. I think that will be the ultimate solution. Going back to your question, I think around AI, there is another thing all of us need to address in the years to come, which is where do we find enough data storage for AI or any kind of digital futures? And one of the most promising areas a lot of companies and big institutions are looking into, including Microsoft, MIT, Harvard, etc., is to use synthetic DNA as a new way of storage data. I mean, everyone probably remembers Jurassic Park, how it all started. It's basically the mosquito got bitten by, the mosquito was biting the dinosaur, and the blood was captured in the amber, which was stored for more than millions of years, so that they will be able to extract that DNA information from the amber to start the clone process. And synthetic DNA is extremely stable, so in theory it can stay there forever, millions of years. Another really wonderful thing is it's really high density. It can be up to 1 million times more dense than existing hardware drive. So imagine in the future, if we can put a lot of the data we're utilizing today of the whole planet into synthetic DNA, that's going to be significantly reduce the carbon footprint of data centers worldwide. And according to the latest research from MIT, the whole world data can just put into like a little cup. That's how powerful it is. So there will be tremendous opportunities for startups in that kind of areas in the years to come to address sustainability issues, which is quite exciting. And blockchain, a lot of things which happen in the place is mainly to use blockchain's traceability to track carbon footprints of the whole supply chain of the business to the individual consumers, to like different parts of providing like different materials and services along the journey for business. So I think that can be another area really help to address the sustainability issues that a lot of SMEs can look at. Yeah. And of course, I really want to talk about my favorite solution, which is nuclear fusion. I know many of you will think that's only for very big state-backed national laboratories or sovereignty funds to actually back that kind of like innovation. But the latest, like development in the space is actually fast-tracked by a lot of intergovernmental like support on the top level. So according to Financial Times, by around 2030, the commercialized nuclear fusion will start to be incorporated into national grids in some countries. So if there is opportunities for startups start to looking at how you can be part of that ecosystem, not necessarily to looking at how to have controlled nuclear fusion, in your company, but maybe there will be a lot of related ecosystem, either supply chains or supporting system that you can participate from now to really catch that like a massive wave coming in, which will provide unlimited carbon emission-free electricity, which can power the whole planet by another 100,000 years. Drop down. Or sustainable issues can be solved. So I think the future is really bright. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. Jeffrey.
Thank you, Max. Yeah, very interesting overview of some very high-tech opportunities. I might take it from another fairly low-tech angle. I think some of the opportunities that Christina mentioned are very interesting. For me, blockchain is one that I think has a real opportunity for a number of different sustainability areas, in particular, trading. So energy trading is a big opportunity. So you can we're seeing the emergence of prosumers, which are producers and consumers of electricity. Anyone with a solar panel on their roof that maybe sells excess power back to the grid is considered a prosumer. And that kind of trade, that exchange of energy can be traced on a blockchain, and that is a way to enable sustainable energy systems to unfold. Blockchain also helps with supply chain tracing as well, which is especially helpful in all kinds of sectors, but especially for raw materials like lumber and fish and otherwise kind of commodities that become undifferentiated in a global market. You can help to actually trace the provenance of each log and each fish in a way that makes sure that it was harvested in a sustainable way. Another way I think that blockchain can be useful is ensuring the long-term robustness of carbon offsets. One of the big risks around carbon offsets, especially nature-based ones, is that you plant a forest today, somebody buys a carbon offset against that forest, and then 5 years from now the forest burns down. So there's no kind of guarantee that the offset that you've bought or purchased today is going to have that kind of long-term robust impact on the climate system. So there are smart contracts, smart offsets that can use blockchain to facilitate their robustness. Those are a couple ideas around that particular topic. But I also wanted, Max, if I may, just to refer to the question that was previous around, and again, this is a very practical thing, but about how do you integrate sustainability into your pitch deck? So pitch decks, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who develop pitch decks for investors. They kind of contain 6 elements, right? The first one is your mission and vision. The second one is the problem you're trying to solve, and often this is accompanied by some kind of story or personal experience that that makes the pitch a little more exciting. The third part is the market size of the opportunity that you've identified. So how big is the pie? The fourth part, you don't actually talk about your product until you get to the fourth part of a pitch deck. So you talk about how your product can take advantage of that market size and address a big problem that you identified at the beginning. And critically, that part, when you're talking about your product, you need to distinguish what makes it unique compared to the competition. And I think this is one of the areas actually that you can integrate your sustainability performance and ambitions. You typically see in a pitch deck, a table with all of your competitors and a bunch of characteristics across the top, and you give yourself a green check mark for everyone, and all your competitors have all red X's, right? This is how it works in a pitch deck. So that's great, and I think one of those categories could be achievement of sustainability performance or achieving certain SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Why not list some of those things in this differentiating slide that really shows how your product is distinguished from its competitors, maybe in a resource intensity or GHG emissions or SDG performance. There's lots of ways to, I think, integrate that into that slide. When you look at traction and revenue, which is the kind of 5th component of a pitch deck, you might actually want to determine whether or not there are opportunities to frame your sustainability agenda as a financial differentiator. So, because of your close attendance to sustainability criteria, you're going to perform more efficiently. Maybe you can actually generate carbon offsets. Maybe there's a revenue stream that you haven't considered. And the last part of a pitch deck is evidence that your team can execute. So often you have team profiles and what they've done, startups they've successfully launched and sold. This is another area I think that you can talk about your sustainability performance, how people in the past have integrated that into previous products and what it meant. So I think there's a number of places in a pitch deck that you can integrate your sustainability credentials. And actually, the first place, I missed the first one, but when you start off with your mission or vision, why not include something about sustainability there? I think right away that grabs in the audience of investors. Those who are interested in sustainability will sit up and think, okay, this person, they put it on their first slide, like they must really care about this issue. So that's, I think, a bit more of a comment on that. To say one more thing as well, if there are policymakers, watching this broadcast, there's a real opportunity, I think, to use the tax system actually to encourage investment into sustainable innovations. In the UK, they used to have, or they still have, something called the Enterprise Investment Scheme, EIS. It essentially created a financial benefit through a tax break for investors to invest in companies that qualified for the EIS scheme. And those companies were ones that would create kind of significant, were deemed to create significant growth in the UK economy and were likely to create lots of jobs. So, very practical, economic reason for giving that kind of tax break to such investors. I think there's a real opportunity also for policymakers to develop a set of criteria to say, listen, if you have a sustainable company, if a company is pursuing a sustainability agenda and that can be demonstrated, maybe it aligns with science-based target initiatives or whatever, maybe that company and the investor can benefit from some kind of tax break. I think there needs to be a policy push towards enabling the investment environment to focus on companies that are making the right choices and doing the right things that align with overall kind of government policy and strategy. So there are opportunities, I think, to use the tax system and to incentivize investors and small companies alike to really take advantage of this opportunity and align their own business with the broader goals of the nation. So just a few ideas there that I think kind of add to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Before unfortunately, we have limited time. We are close to the closing, but we have a few questions coming from the audience. Some we've been already partially answered, but let me draw the first one, which was addressed to Christina. AI will revolutionize our business, like you said. how can AI companies comply with sustainability when the issue of e-waste rise, like you mentioned? I don't know if you want to address more, Christina, or if any other panelists that want to also say something on this topic.
I mean, I feel like I've been working on e-waste the last 20 years, so we have a similar discussion on Bitcoin with, there was article about showing how much, waste you generate with the early replacement of PC on when you mine Bitcoin. I think it's clear that we use more tech. This tech is not lasting forever, and then you have early replacement. Now, we go back to the principle mentioned earlier of circular economy. I mean, in some cases, this material can be recovered. There is still value of this material, maybe in another of this computing power in other application. A little bit with the battery, you no longer use the battery on the EV car, but you can still use for storage system. So as long as we have a proper accountability, a proper system to take care of that, and whether it is material recovery, whether it's refurbishment, whether it's reuse, is good. Now, if you really want to limit that, the generation of e-waste, there is only one way, which is limit the production, limit the consumption. But that's a totally different discussion we should have. Do we really need all that tech? Yes or no? If the answer is no, okay, then we can reduce. So the waste will be definitely less. If the answer is yes, well, then the only way is making sure we take the full life cycle into account, and we make sure that one is no longer fit for purpose. There is another option, another opportunity at the end of life.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
for
so much.
me,
Federico.
I would
Please,
add
please,
on. I would like to think about AI, blockchain, and stuff, all the things, but using it good for sustaining planet and sustaining humans and sustaining the basics is more important. And as Christina mentioned about quantum computing and nuclear fusion and all this stuff, it might take over a period of time, let's say 5 years or 3 years or even 10 years of time. I'm not sure how much time it's going to take to innovate and to implement in the real world and the real situation. By the time we reach there, what are the solutions also we have to think about? So let's say there is a study last 2 weeks ago stating that at least 10 conversations in ChatGPT is taking about 17,000 liters of water. So what is your take on it? So let's say what is your point of view, how we can the transition is there, but the thing is, to do that transition we need some intermediate technologies and intermediate innovations. So that I want to rely mostly on the previous technologies which already developed, and mechanical relay switches. One is the thing which is the computer invented by Charles Babbage, is one of a machine once upon a time, and you can use this mechanical relay switches in data centers. You can reduce e-waste, and there is so much of different types of technologies where we can use, and that's why I founded Zero Carbon, and my main aim is to reduce the digital carbon emissions. So the thing is, like, there is transition, there is requirement of quantum computing, there is requirement of energy, and also for quantum computing, how much of energy is required is also the analytics we have to see in the future. So in that case, I would look mostly into the already present innovations which are already written in books, which are already have been scientifically proven in 1800s or 1700s or even 1900s, and implementing or creating that type of solutions for the real world right now may be helpful to achieve our sustainable development goals. And also using AI for good than bad is better for the businesses as well. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Raj. We have one question. He's addressing Federico. Federico, thanks for emphasizing that protecting your supply chain is crucial to be sustainable. Can you specify how in a low manner cost?
I think I tried to mention earlier. I don't know what your business, what's your specific supply chain looks like. I would say there are ways you can even team up with other SMEs. There is a very good example on this when Fairphone started the journey, and they wanted to secure materials with low impact and so on. They were not big enough to have a good deal on tin, and then just teamed up with another Dutch company that was close to them, which was Philips. So I think it really depends what's your business, but I would say there are ways to reduce those costs. As I think as mentioned earlier, you are small, you have everything in control, so you have a little bit more flexibility on that. And I think nowadays there are smart ways to reduce cost. So I don't think it's impossible. Maybe it's not immediate. You need to research a little bit how to do that, but there are ways to do.
Thank you, Federico.
If I
Please,
just jump
please,
well,
please.
very quickly, I think the question is really relevant, because I think the cost issue is one that small companies really face, and the idea of paying a premium for something that's more sustainable can be hard to swallow, and shouldn't really have to happen in my opinion. So I've worked with a lot of companies who, and I said this at the beginning, but maybe just to repeat a little bit, there's a requirement for, I think, low carbon products and services to be developed, but they need to perform across a huge range of characteristics, not just on their environmental credentials, but also on their cost compared to the competition, on their performance, on their durability, everything. So anyone who's buying anything assesses it probably first on price, and probably it gives 90% of the weight to the price of the product. We all do this. I do this, right? It's just what you do when you look at comparisons. And I think that finding an opportunity to develop a sustainable product that actually is cost competitive, that's where the real sweet spot is, and it has to kind of outperform its competitors across all different metrics. So yeah, it's absolutely right, I think, to bring up the point of how do you kind of become a sustainable enterprise whilst looking at and caring for the bottom line. And those two things shouldn't be mutually exclusive. We should be able to achieve sustainability and also do it at a low cost. And I think this is where climate innovation and low carbon entrepreneurs have a real role to play. And it's through them that we're going to get these solutions. And I think it's really up to investors to recognize those companies that do deliver across those different dimensions and invest in them really substantially.
Thank you, Jeffrey. We had the last questions, which is for Raj. As you mentioned, aligning to at least one sustainable goal is important. What should company do to maintaining financial viability while aligning to these goals?
Yeah, there is so much they can do. At least they keep innovating, they keep thriving, and they are also looking back and forward while implementing the sustainable development goals, how they can be financially viable at the same time, and also profitability is also the one thing at the end of the day, not only being financially viable, but also you should also generate profits for the investors at least, because if you want to sustain your business as well, doing good is one thing, but on the other hand, doing good is only not the investors are looking for. So in that thing, you should also align with the goals and keep always updated with the what's coming up in the technologies and what's coming up in the innovation side, and keep innovating, keep thriving, and keep understanding about how you can be financially viable and sustainable at the same time, and also with generating profit.
Thank you so much, Raj. Unfortunately, we are close to the closing, and it's been extremely enjoyable, guys, and so insightful for me, first of all, and I'm completely sure all our audience, which has been crossing more than 200 people live. We are very happy to have this kind of numbers, and everything is thanks to you. Federico, Raj, Christina, Stephanie, and Jeffrey, thank you so much. I don't know how to thank you 10 times more. And I hope to see you again for maybe the next event, and we do panel discussion in 1-2 months in different topics. And again, I'm completely sure that the audience, they all enjoy so much, as for what we can see also for the engagement. Thanks to everyone watching today, and I wish you evening, good night, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.